and welcome to Jedi Jingle Maker. This is my YouTube channel where I cover gear reviews of electric guitars. I also look at music production equipment of all sorts, like this amplifier and DAW related things, and then I make music with these instruments that I review and post it on the channel. So I hope you'll check out the videos as well as the Jedi Jingle Maker collection of music available on all major music platforms. In today's video, we're looking at the beautiful Firefly Super ffST, which is a Stratocaster-ish guitar made out of swamp ash with many specs you wouldn't expect on a guitar which cost after shipping less than $200. So let's dive right in and look at every part of this guitar so you can decide if this type of guitar is something that you are interested in. I'm going to use it as a modifications platform. In this video, we're going to walk through this guitar head to toe and look at every feature that I look at in guitars, including putting a fret rocker to it, seeing how the fretboard is, and my general comments about what I observe. In addition, I'm going to talk about the modifications I'm planning for this beautiful instrument. And there are many. These are great modifications platforms. That's what I use them for. I can tell you that the end result might look something like this, which is another ffST that I modified with Seymour Duncan pickups and polished the frets and did a number of things, and it plays like an absolute beast of a guitar. That is one of my daily rides in terms of which guitars I always play. And I want to do the same thing with this. And by the way, we'll also cover some of the issues that I encountered as I started to look at this guitar and how it came out of the box, which was kind of surprising. I hope you will check out my shorts, which will be released after this video, showing all kinds of tone demonstrations of what this thing can do through something like a Line 6 HX Stomp type of setup or a Boss Katana MK2-100. So when I opened this up initially, I was surprised that the springs were almost absolutely pinned to the fretboard. Like this bridge was set so low that they were pinned. So I raised it up. I'm not sure if it is where it needs to be. I adjusted it, but the point is it was easily remedied. And we'll look at the fretboard to see how the rest of the situation is, but that was unusual. And I think you can expect quirky things like that when you order a $200 guitar, so I always expect it. I expect those challenges to be part of what I'm doing when I modify it as well, to fix anything I find that I can fix that's kind of weird. And also maybe accept some quirkiness of things that just come with $200 guitars, like fit and finish issues. Let's start by looking at the top of this guitar. And one thing that I was struck by was this dark roast that you can see on this. This is a little darker than the other two ffSTs which I own, which are lighter roast, but I really like this. It kind of makes the grain pop out like that. I'm actually a big fan of the logo as well, especially because the F looks like a J, and that's Jedi Jingle Maker. But nice headstock. I think it's an attractive headstock look. I really like it. It's a matter of taste, but for me, I like it. Now, these are locking tuners. However, unlike my original Firefly, these look like the same exact tuners that came on the other Firefly I had, with one difference, and that is that these tuners absolutely do not perform. There is a lot of play in them. They seem to not be able to hold tune, perhaps. You know, I don't know, but they really, really are like loose and have too much play. So I think they're contributing to what is an overall issue with this guitar straight out of the box, which is I cannot get it to hold tune. And I've watched lots of other ffST videos on YouTube, and I think that's a pretty common theme, and I think I know, some of the things to focus on to fix it, because in this guitar, I completely fixed it. This guitar would not hold tune whatsoever, and now it holds tune rock solid. I mean, rock solid. So I'm confident I can get this to it, even though now I couldn't get it to hold tune for 30 seconds of playing. It would be out of tune. But that's easily remedied with a few changes, and I'll cover that in the modifications list and as I talk about this guitar. But these are going to need to go for sure. Although they look cool, they are not going to be something that can be on a musical instrument of mine because I need it to be solid. Okay, now looking at the back of the neck, since we've got it turned over, one interesting thing is that there's a little flame in here. I thought that was kind of interesting. There's just a little bit of flaming that you see in this maple that they use. And this maple, if it's anything like the maple in the other two ffSTs, is nice and solid. I mean, when you take out the string trees, for instance, on the other side, you feel how dense this wood is. So I feel good about that. You can see the grain runs down nicely. It's one piece of wood, which is nice. This kind of guitar, you know, I would feel good about taking it on a plane where I had to kind of stow it places because there's a lot of strength in a neck like this. But it really feels great, and it is so smooth. So I give this a 9 out of 10 in terms of necks. It is really, really great. I like the feel of it. It's something like a halfway point between an Ibanez and a Schecter. If you've played those kinds of faster, modern feeling necks, it's really great. I love it. Now, one thing I noticed was that they cut into the heel on the neck close to the heel. On my other two ffSTs, they kind of came, it was up a bit and then into a triangle fairly far above. But on this one, they rounded. So apparently that's a feature of the Super ffST version. I'm going to take this sticker off, of course. Nobody wants stickers on their neck. That's very important to do because you don't want the glue under that to start getting into stuff. This needs to stay lightning fast. Now, continuing on the back of the guitar, this heel is interesting. It curves in ever so slightly. Hopefully you can pick that up just a bit, but not a lot. So that doesn't bother me. It's certainly more space than it's more narrow than my situation on, say, my Schecter Nick Johnston, which is a more traditional guitar. So I think this is fine, but it doesn't give you like super fret access up to the top frets. It is something you have to get around as you play here. So that doesn't bother me much at all, except that with this guitar, but I thought it was important to point out. I thought the work on these neck screws was quite good. You know, I look for craftsmanship on stuff like that, or the holes drilled cleanly and nicely, and it looks to me like they definitely are. It also looks to me like it's painted even inside the edges of these holes, which is a nice touch. Now you can see this finish very nicely on the back. It's like a form of cerusing, which is where you leave the grains exposed. This is not filled pour, so you can feel the grain very nicely. I love that. I think it's a pretty pattern on the wood, especially here. This is a swamp ash body, and swamp ash is a very resonant musical wood. It's my favorite wood to have in a guitar, and it's in this one, so that gives it a big up. It's going to vibrate those strings in a different way, get those pickups to sound, I think, much better. Like sustain on these guitars, I just think is incredible. Now, continuing down, you can see that the cover of the electronics cavity is actually recessed into the body. That's a nice touch, I thought. Of course, this one is not, but it's got the bevel top. I've already adjusted, and we'll take this off and look inside at the inside. But I've already adjusted the screws on the trem to set it. You know, you can see there that it's pretty even with the body, maybe just a little bit high, but this is easy to get to the way they have this set up. You can get the screwdriver right in there and adjust the claws. So not that you have to do that a lot, but when you have to do it, it's nice to have it like that. I heard a little bit of creaking in the springs, which doesn't concern me at all, but I'm not sure if I'm going to keep these springs is the point. I've got other Fender springs, and I'll probably swap those out as well. All right, let's look inside this incredible thing and see what's going on. Okay, now that we have the cover off, let's see what's under the cover. But first, I noticed something while I was unscrewing this, and that is that there is significant, looks like sawdust coming out from the holes. And you really never know what you're going to get when you get these inexpensive guitars. It could be something that is just, you never expected, I've found. The kinds of things that are odd with these guitars. I kind of like that part too. It's like opening up, what was it, Cracker Jacks? Don't know what you're going to get. All right, this looks like a little sawdust for whatever reason, but there's sawdust down in there too. Okay, that's easy enough. It's black. It's black, but that's not graphite. So I don't think that's shielding. I think that's just black paint. Yeah, that's not graphite. Okay, so that's fine. Don't need shielding in the trem cavity anyway. I always look to see if the screws are set nice and straight, and they actually seem, yeah, they seem straight. Tolerable. You can see this claw's a little tilted. I did that when I adjusted it, so I've just played with this a little. All right, look at that. Oh, that's interesting. Look at that. That is so funny. Okay, they soldered the ground wire to the nub inside the spring thing, so you can't get this spring off without unsoldering this. Okay, that's a good example of what I'm talking about. You're really not sure what you're going to get, and that's easily fixed, right? So this is just one more fun thing to kind of update on it. I'm already going to have the solder gun out. We're going to get it all taken care of, so no worries whatsoever. And I don't really like the way this thing is leaning over the springs either. I'll probably shorten it, and I'll attach it to this spot, which is where you're supposed to, I believe, attach the ground to the claws, this little nub there. But okay, so these springs do look kind of cheap. They feel kind of cheap to me compared to other springs I have, so I'm definitely going to upgrade those. You can see the block is a decent size, and I think you might be able to upgrade this from something like a Music Lily brass block, so I might upgrade the block too. Probably be a very inexpensive change to make. But yeah, look at that. Nice routing, I'm going to claim. Very nice routing. And that's something I've observed in all my ffSTs, is a very nice, clean route. That makes it easy to do a lot of things once you get into this. All right, now let's take a look in the electronics cavity. Okay, let's see what we have here. Again, there's a decent amount of sawdust, easy enough to clean up, but nice sturdy plate. I like that. All right, let's look inside. Again, we have that black stuff. Let's see if this is graphite. You can, if it is graphite, it'll rub off on your finger, and that's not graphite. So that's not a shielded cavity. As far as I can tell, that's a cavity painted black, which is a nice touch. It's sealed. I like it. No complaints whatsoever. I mean, I am going to shield this cavity with copper shielding. So, by the way, stay tuned for the modifications video, which will follow shortly after this one in the coming weeks. Might already be out when you're watching this video in the future. So go check it out. I'll link it at the end of this video as soon as I release it. But easy process to go ahead and shield and ground this cavity to reduce any kind of interference from electronic interference that you might encounter in your environment. All right, let's look here. Okay, that's interesting. First time I saw this, kind of like a weird ad hoc route around the 5-way switch, almost like it wasn't thick enough and they had to go in and just clear an area, but you can see it, the line kind of wanders. That's interesting. Very interesting. Who knows what the story is there? Okay. Looks like... Yeah, interesting. I'm not an expert on this wiring because this is a coil tap setup and it's only got the two pots, but this must be the coil tap tone. I'm going to learn all about it. I'm going to replace, I think, all of these electronics probably, and the pickups in the modifications that I do. But you can see it's got the larger size pot. It says K series. What does it say? Something K series. Well, anyway, it's a larger size pot. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. I kind of like it, but they feel good. They feel solid. This is the 5-way switch, and yeah, looks like the soldering's pretty good. So nice and clean. One thing for sure is look at this routing. It's just beautiful. Really, really nice. They did a terrific job on that. Despite this kind of weirdness, it's still nice and sturdy, so it's not a problem. But yeah, so far so good. And by the way, the electronics work really well, which is a great thing to have happen. You know, sometimes you get a guitar, it's traveled a long way, and the electronics have gotten corroded or whatever else, and it doesn't work. But this one worked very well. Now, it is made, this one was made in Factory 80 in 2023 and in month 11, November. And then it was the 10,000th guitar that came off the factory line. There are a lot of these things out there, so you might have one. All right, let's look at the rest of this thing, starting on the other side. First of all, we're just going to observe, take the time to observe the Ceruse finish on the front. I think it's really quite beautiful, the way they pieced the three pieces together. If you look carefully, you can see where the lines are. I believe there's one here, and I believe there's one here. But they did put this more ornate piece down low where you really see most of the guitar. This is most of the guitar people see as you're playing it, so that's kind of interesting. And I like this pattern up here, so it looks like almost like they did it on purpose to kind of pick some wood that looked good. I don't know, maybe it was just pure luck, but I'm happy with what I got. Again, you can feel the finish on here. This was one weird thing. It was like a knot that hadn't been filled in, and you could really feel that. It doesn't bother me. I'm just saying that was something I noticed. The pickups, I'll talk about the pickups before I talk about the bridge. Pickups are decent. The humbucker is decent. I like the sound of it actually, so I'm in no rush to change that particular part of it, but I will when I modify it. However, the neck was a bit muddy. I wasn't impressed by that. You know, the key here is I'm going to replace both the humbuckers and all of the electronics. So this will be up to exactly what I want it to be, because there could be various issues in here with the wrong kind of capacitor or the wrong kind of tone potentiometers used to highlight what the pickups can do. So I'm going to get it dialed in for real, and that's not that expensive to do in terms of electronics. And you really don't have to spend that much on pickups. There are some excellent pickups like Fleor pickups that I've been buying lately that just seem to sound outstanding. I know some people complain about them being microphonic, but I haven't found that to be the case. But they're very inexpensive, so you don't have to spend a ton of money on here. If you want to make it sound absolutely incredible, well then maybe you get something like these Seymour Duncans, and they're going to definitely sound great. But you know, experiment with more inexpensive pickups. It's fun. All right, now if we look at this bridge, it is actually different than the other ffST I got. The other one had more of a rounded on these corners, but and I noticed that this one has a much larger U on one side than the other. I'm not sure why it's like that, but it's fine. However, it feels solid and it works just fine. So besides the creaking of the springs a little bit, this feels like a great trem. It's a simple trem, traditional trem. You're not supposed to be, you know, dive bombing repeatedly on this thing. It's meant to be an accent piece, and it works great as that, and I love it for that. But the bridge itself, it's going to be modified. I'm going to take these saddles out. I can't stand these bent steel saddles. Some people love them. I don't love them. Also, these little nuts, which I could just get different types of nuts that are lower, but these are kind of rough, so they kind of eat at your hand if you do a lot of palm muting down the bottom of this. So these have to go. I'm going to do that in the modification. I'll get roller brass tuners in when I do the mod, and you can see what I picked there, but with stainless steel rollers, and that'll enable this to not get bound up using the tremolo. So that's really helpful when you have this kind of setup. There's no locking nut on this, so you don't have any way to lock down the tuning of the string other than you have to have no friction points so the string can get back to its same size again after you use the whammy. Now, these are nice knobs. You know, as nice as any knob I've seen on any guitar. The feeling of the electronics, though, is nice and solid. Like, very, very solid. And this is like got just enough tension. Typically, these aren't going to be like great even taper roll-off type potentiometers. You know, if you want that, modify it. It's fun. Okay, another key feature of this guitar is, of course, the spoke wheel truss rod adjustment. That makes truss rod adjustment so incredibly easy. All you need to adjust the truss rod is to stick this little thing in, oops, if I can do it, and hold the camera, and then turn it. Right now I've got it tweaked into where I want it to be, but when it showed up, you know, there was, I think, a little bit of need to flatten the neck out. I might have had a little bit more bow in it than I wanted, but that's typical. Any guitar you get from the male, you're going to have to do that. If it hasn't been set up, you need to set it up. So that makes it incredibly easy, though. There's no removing of the cover or taking the neck off or any of the other ways that you have to do truss rods on guitars. This is a very modern and good way to do it, and I found it to work quite well in these guitars. So the truss rod seems highly functional. I want to point out something that, you know, highlights what I'm trying to talk about, fit and finish issues. If you can see here, it's just been painted over, but they didn't continue it through. So you see where the paint stops and then it gets much lighter. So if that kind of thing bothers you, well, then these guitars probably are going to bother you in a lot of ways, because you'll find little things like that around it. I showed you this spot down here, all kinds of little things like that, like the little flame on the back, whatever, all those things. And you know, I think that's par for the course, and it gives the guitar charm. I'm going to be playing this guitar. In fact, I plan to play this guitar outside and perform with it, and I think it'll be up to the task once I modify it, completely up to the task to be a fully giggable, quality, super high quality instrument. I mean, it's solid. The neck pocket on this is solid. The connection points are solid, so I have no worries that I'll be able to make this thing absolutely top level professional instrument quality. Now, when it came, however, you know, this was pinned all the way down to the body, these screws, and it was like, you know, you tried to strum it, it was just absolutely the strings pinned on the frets. I don't know why that was. That's kind of another quirky thing, but again, easy to fix. These two points here with an Allen wrench, you just, you know, lower or heighten it. I didn't spend a lot of time. I'll fix that later. When I put on new strings, these are still the factory strings, which are like 10s. They're pretty horrible, and I need to get them off, but I've been using them with decent success. Now, these are stainless steel ball end frets, and they are great. This guitar is pretty good with the fret level situation, but we're going to go through and put a rocker to every one of these to see what it's like. And you'll get to see what this showed up as. I'm going to claim most guitars you get are going to have some amount of issues with fret leveling, and as long as it plays well and isn't fretting out and so on, then I think it's probably okay. But you can always fret level it to make it absolutely level and ultra playable, and that is totally possible to do to this guitar. I'm not sure that I need to. Now, coming up to the top of the neck, let's look at this. These string trees are, if you can see, I think this one pulls it that way a bit, but they're no good, and I think they're responsible for a lot of the tuning issues which you encounter initially out of the box with this guitar. I would recommend replacing these immediately. You can get replacement string trees for less than $15, even graphite ones from Graphtec, like the ones I use. But these tuners are staggered, which means that you don't have as much of a need for the string trees. What I've done on my other two is I took this one out and didn't replace it because the angle is fine. I worry about these kind of ringing out when I play, but I haven't had it be a real problem. On this one, however, I did replace it with a graphite string tree, which I will do on this one as well. Then that'll remove this friction point. Now it's time to check out the fretboard, see if we have any uneven frets. We'll start at the top and move all the way to the bottom. I'll go in fast mode unless I encounter a fret that's uneven, in which case I'll stop and let you know. And at the end we can talk about how the fretboard looks. This one's got ever so slightly a rock on it. There is a slight rock right there, and then none there. This one's got ever so slight rock in this one too. None there. A very, very slight rock right there. And then none there. So just the middle of this. That one's got ever so slightly a rock on it. Very, very slight. And again, a little bit more out to that, but still fairly slight. Very, very slight one right there. Very slight rock. None. A little bit more rock there. This is the biggest one. So far, that's the biggest one. Slight rock there. Slight rock there. Slight rock there. Definitely rock there. Yeah, this whole fret is high. A little bit of rock there. A little bit of rock there. Rock there, that, yeah, this spot. A little bit of rock there. A little bit of fret rocker there. Little there. Little there. Little there. Okay, so after looking at this entire fretboard, what I've realized is that it is okay with its current condition. I've seen worse. I haven't found it affects playability even with the limited amount of setup I've done on it, so I'm not that concerned, but it's definitely a candidate for a fret level, which I think I will definitely do. Probably not as the first round of modifications, but definitely a second. I can go through and get this down to the level. Now the cool thing about the stainless steel is, although it's a little bit more difficult to fret level it, I've been told, once you get it down to fret level, these frets don't wear out as quickly, if ever, in a lifetime of using them, stainless steel. So once I get it to this playable state, this should be good for good, as long as I don't mess it up in the process. But that's half the fun of doing it. So now let's talk about the sum total of modifications, which I think will probably cost me about $200 on this guitar overall, give or take. I'll just run through what I plan on doing head to toe, and I hope you will watch the video to see the whole process of doing this, which might encourage you to take on guitars like this and do the same kind of thing. The first thing is new saddles. I'm going to get new roller style saddles that I put on other guitars. In fact, take a look. They're on this one. They look great. I'm going to put those on here. In addition, new pickups. Not sure I'll stay with the chrome look on the pickups, but that'll greatly increase the sound. I'm going to clean and polish the fretboard. So we're going to polish the frets, clean the fretboard. That makes a huge difference. Right now it is gritty, super gritty. Even though they're stainless steel, it's gritty out of the box. I don't know if you can hear, but yeah, it's really gritty. That'll completely change. It was the same way on the other two ffSTs I got, and it was easy to get on the other side of that. I'm going to smooth out all of these nut slots just with these strings and a little X-Acto knife, just to make sure that anything I can see in here in terms of friction will be sanded off just with guitar strings. So we'll clean up that nut. I'm also going to heavily lubricate that with graphite grease, which is very easy to do. Again, we're going to take out both of these string trees. I'm going to replace one with a Graphtec. We're going to take out these tuners and we're going to replace them with Hipshot tuners, open back Hipshot chrome tuners. Okay, now what are we doing on the other side? On this side, I'm going to replace these springs after I unsolder this. We're going to replace these springs with much higher quality springs. And also I'm going to place some WD-40 on these connection points. If there's any squeaking in any of these, that'll eliminate it, just a tiny amount. And that's in addition to taking this off and attaching it to the correct place. Easy enough to do. I'll also get this all set up so that tremolo lays exactly where I want it to be. I'm going to replace all the electronics in here. I'm going to shield this cavity and the plate completely, and I'm going to ground that. That'll be a fun set of activities to do. And I hope to be able to continue to have the coil splitting, learn how to do that on this guitar. Of course, we're going to get rid of that sticker. Here's what the jack looks like. Excellent connection, seems rock solid. It clicks right in, so no issues whatsoever. Thank you for joining me to check out my new Firefly ffST, the Super ffST, as we checked out every spec and also as we talked about what modifications will be made with this thing moving forward, which I hope you'll check out that video. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to Jedi Jingle Maker.